Hi all, it's Carter Umhow here. Before we start today's episode, I wanted to jump in now in late May and let you guys know that we recorded this episode way back in early March, before the world around us had drastically changed so much and the pandemic had really shifted our way of understanding both our worlds and our relationship to work. This is an episode that, as you probably already know, is going to be a lot about the personal experiences of Opal's co-founders as they navigated the privilege and excitement of sabbatical. So we want to offer the episode anyway, even though some of the questions that as a people and as individuals we're asking about work are probably pretty different right now. However, we do think that this could be both entertaining at least, and if not, could also just inspire sort of new ways of thinking about some of the identity questions that come up when your entire work life has shifted. So without further ado, we'll take you back to another time.
Hello and welcome to The Appetite, a podcast brought to you by Opal Food and Body Wisdom, an eating disorder treatment center in Seattle, Washington. I'm your host, Carter Umhow, a therapist, artist, and writer. The Appetite is all about issues of food, body, sport, and mental health. And today I'm sitting down with Opal's co-founders, Kara Bazzi, Lexi Giblin, and Julie Church, and we're going to be discussing a pretty cool thing that all three of them got the opportunity to do individually over the last, 6 months, which was a kind of mini sabbatical or long extended break from work. So we're going to be talking a bit about that in conversation today, why this came about, how it went, and what some of the reflections and takeaways have been as they've all now returned to work. Mm-hmm. Hi.
Hello.
So Julie, you are 3 days in, 2.5 days in to fresh off of sabbatical. Mm-hmm. And then Kara and Lexi, how long have you guys been back to work since yours?
I took time off in July.
Okay.
The whole month of July.
And I took August off.
Okay.
So we're a little bit more removed from it.
Right. And we're recording this episode at the beginning of March. And so, yeah, good ways out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we were talking before we started recording about the use of the word sabbatical. And you guys have been using that word kind of throughout this time, but we're just offering some nuance around why that's probably not the best word. Can you guys explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think we've been using the word sabbatical because there's the time off wasn't just time off, I guess, to us. I mean, it was more about learning about ourselves and what's happening for us, kind of a time of reflection that we would then take back to Opal and bring more clarity about ourselves and care about what's going on for us as we return. It wasn't just a vacation. It was more a vacation plus introspection, I'd say.
Yeah, learning opportunity.
With really
Novelty. A novel learning opportunity.
The word sabbatical is typically used, I've thought about it as, I think about like priests and professors going on sabbaticals. I'm sure other people do, but for some reason that's what I have in my mind. And it would typically be something that's
3 months.
3 months, 3 to 6, something like that, with focused study, focused rest, focused adventure.
I think of it too as like a time away from active leadership.
Okay.
When I think of pastors and professors, and for us too, like being removed from active leadership in the day-to-day to be with ourselves.
So how did this idea come about? Was it something that had been in the works for a long time?
Didn't it start with me saying I want to do?
Yes.
This is Kara. I think I think there was just a recognition of being almost 8 years in of this time, and really for me, I think feeling the need for a period of removal. And I don't know exactly what all the factors were going into expressing that idea, but I remember expressing the idea to the two of them, and then saying, what if we all did this? And are we at a time in our business that we feel readiness to have one of us be away, and can the other two kind of support the one person being gone in the leadership? Do you guys remember anything more?
I remember I wasn't feeling well I was feeling like not physically well, and so was motivated by that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been resistant to the idea for years. I
Really?
guess that's
Why is that?
Ooh, getting into it.
There's
Really?
context here, right? I mean, it took us a long time to get to
Fill
this
me in.
time. I really, when Opal was younger, it just felt like we had to keep ourselves there every day. We had to stay on task, on point, and go, engage and be completely present there in order to keep it. It felt like an infant, like that kind of monitoring. And I felt like it was hard to think of being away for an extended period of time. And I felt like one of us needed to be there at all times. And then, our infant has grown up into a adolescent or something.
Or young adult.
Young adult.
Young adult-ish.
And
Like
I've-
dog years, because this is
I know,
8-year-old
totally.
only, so
Totally. It's dog years.
It's older than an
Business
8-year-old,
years.
So I don't know.
Other business leaders out there, let's talk about it, right? We'd be
Yeah, I'm
curious.
sure people feel that way.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I was pretty concerned and anxious. I think probably more anxious about letting go, letting the entity be free of us. Over time, I know that my stress level was concerning to me and probably others.
Wink, wink.
Okay, so that's a clear
And,
yes.
And so
Stress impacts our health.
And
Yeah.
so, right. And so then there's also this, thing we do at Opal, which is eating disorder treatment, which is
This thing.
which is all about slowing down,
Yeah. And taking care of yourself.
right? It's all about like learning to just tune into your body, tune into yourself, tune into who you are, tune into the world, tune into others. Yet it's something that I very much struggle with doing. I struggle with the same productivity push and to-do list push that our clients do. And I knew that maybe how we would change, how Julie, Kara, and I would change if I was able to find a way to slow down personally. What impact would that have on the organization as a whole?
And it was quite brilliant with Lexi being the first one to do it. I think that was meaningful because of the resistance that Lexi had. And so for her to go first was, I think, really significant. And
Because it
because
I'm
the
imagining-
resistance was I think that her having the experience, have the felt experience first of being the one that was removing herself from
I
the
think
day-to-day.
that you all were probably waiting for me to give the permission to let's do this. Let's all take a break. And my being the first one was symbolic of my being on board
Yeah, the readiness.
with this. Yeah.
Totally.
The problem is I just don't tend to love time off. I love my work. And so that was the part that was hard, is I enjoy what I do, and it feels like a little vacation in some ways to come to work every day because I love my work and I love being around the people that we work with and everything. But now I'm post sabbatical. I'm more pro time off.
Okay, so what shifted?
Tell us about your sabbatical, Lexi. 1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, okay. Let's see.
Oh, and I have a good quote from Lexi after week 1 of her sabbatical.
Oh
by the way.
gosh. Oh geez. What did I say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went on my sabbatical not feeling well, and I haven't been feeling well for years. And I really had been attributing that not feeling well to stress and aging. And then over the sabbatical, I slept a mother load. I rested like nobody's business. Art of non-productivity was the name of the game, and just following my whimsy every day was just what I was about. And came out of the sabbatical still not feeling well, and was then able to say, wait a second, maybe there's something more happening for me than just stress and aging. And so then got more focused on my health and looking into my health and what was happening there, and found out that I've actually been dealing with health problems for probably since the inception of Opal, so for 7-8 years, and not knowing it, like not fully knowing it. Like I knew I wasn't feeling well, but just thought, this is stress. Wow. And this is raising a daughter. This is raising, this is life. And this is what it feels like to be in my 40s. And, I don't know. I didn't understand. So I think that this sabbatical helped me tease apart what was stress and what was actually potentially a health condition or conditions.
Oh. We're laughing, but that sounds
it's
horrible.
no,
Yeah.
it's not.
It's not good.
It's not.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
So I guess it provided clarity. And you can't, it's really hard to tease all of that apart, right? So it like rest and just a week wasn't going to do it, right? You need to have like this sustained like experience of not being on for a while, really unplugging. So I think I'll always look back on it as like the time when things shifted for me and I became more concerned about my health and I started getting more treatment for what was actually happening. And so without sabbatical, where would I be?
Right.
I mean, I probably wouldn't know what I understand now about myself and about my health. And of course, I just, that's important to me personally and certainly my family and my loved ones. And I think it's important to Opal too, that I'm tended to.
Yes,
absolutely.
Definitely.
Yes.
Very important.
Yeah.
I think that it's just so important and so striking for anyone that's listening, as most people won't have the privilege of going on a sabbatical, to know that there's more to be attuned to in any experience that's happening in the body. Like that there can be good questions to ask. And it's normal in our culture, unfortunately, to be stressed and to accept that as having big impact on our bodies and our mental health, and for that to be okay. But I feel like your story with getting to have the time, getting to have the experience of really paying attention can be a bit of a lesson for anyone to go like, oh, should I be assuming that like feeling this bad is normal, whatever this bad is for any particular person? And if it is just stress related, that still matters, right? Like it still matters to pay attention and try to make some small changes if it's possible to not feel so horrible, because those things can translate into something like more biological, right?
Right. So the stress, I'm sure, made me more vulnerable to having health problems. So that's not that they're separate, but it wasn't just stress that I was dealing with.
Yeah. Wow.
Can I add something else that you said?
Yeah. What was this quote?
I don't have the perfect quote, but basically, I think the other thing that was striking to me as Lexi's friend was she had talked about, being the challenge of taking the break to like just kind of psychologically of just historically not enjoying time away or not enjoying vacation. And for her, I remember a week in hearing from her and just being like, this is so different. I'm having such a different experience and actually enjoying like having this experience with myself, and to then be able to say like, I'm having a new experience that I can take with me forward, that I can enjoy rest, that I can enjoy being away, that I can enjoy something outside of kind of the day-to-day work. And I remember that being like, whoa, that's so cool.
And I do think that is a big part of what the time off gave me. Is I think I've lived in fear of stillness.
Yes, that's what I remember you saying.
Yeah,
that would have been the quote. I didn't have the quote. She has the quote.
My work, the productivity, like keeping your eye on the prize, like boom, 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 let's go. We got it. There was anxiety about the absence of what life would look like in the absence of a to-do list, and what's there. Who am I? Like learning how to even just do daily pleasure things, like, oh, do I feel like reading? Or it's just everything for the last 13 years has just felt focused on completing a task on a daily basis, or achieving a goal, or being present for someone else. So this idea of slowing down and turning inward or developing more of an inner life, I think, it's all blowing my mind.
Yeah. And would you say, like, maybe this is a vulnerable question, but it is a vulnerable topic. In your fear of stillness, were there experiences that you had previously that made you scared of stillness, or was it more of the unknown?
No, there's history to that. There's history there.
Yeah.
So I much higher anxiety when things slow down. Like I have a history of really not liking Sundays because Sundays feel like life kind of stops in a lot of ways. Everything's slowed down, and there's not the same structure. Like the wide open spaces have historically been more difficult for me. I've got that over-controlled temperament where I like the structure. Monday mornings, I actually I like the whole getting back into the routine kind of experience. So yeah, anxiety and probably stillness. That's when things haven't gone as well in my life.
That's thank you for naming those things, because I think that that's a really important part of tackling maybe a drive toward productivity, is to think about the fear of what's in the absence of that. Like, what's the black hole? What's the abyss? What's happening on the other side without those things? That, because I think that that's the question that a lot of people maybe need to ask when they just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, right? That there's something that they're pushing away from in some ways that needs maybe some care and attention. Yeah.
I'm actually just finding myself really enjoying hearing you talk about this again and being like attuned to you in this way. So interestingly, on the stillness front, I was the one that suggested doing the mini sabbatical. It's interesting because my barrier was a little different in that I craved the stillness. I craved the time away from being in leadership and the kind of being on. But what I realize of why I use the term restriction a lot, because I feel like that's a good framework for my own history with my eating disorder, but also other forms of restriction. And I think I had seen this pattern of restricting myself from regular vacation because my barrier was not wanting to impact people and not wanting to, in this case, also not wanting to impact Julie and Lexi. And my relational desires were trumping my own personal needs. I think for the 7 years, I was just not taking very much time away from work. I noticed in my own therapy that I've worked really hard to not be as driven by my impact on other people, and feeling more secure in my relationships has been a huge part of my healing journey. And so the more secure I was feeling in all my relationships, including with Julie and Lexi, I was able to bring forth that advocacy to I think I need a break. So that's been massive for me and my process with it. So my month away, it was like indulging in the craving. And it very much felt that way around not leading. So, and I think I had a similar mentality of just follow what I desire and allow that to be. And, it was August, but I still kept my childcare. And so I had even kind of thought of some of the things I might want to do, but everything was, everything was cancelable. I didn't have to do things if I didn't want to in the moment. And I found myself just I really enjoyed indulging in all that. And indulgence, used to be a cuss word in my previous life earlier in my life, where that would have been so bad and so guilt inducing. And so it just feels like almost this other layer of recovery of being able to follow pleasure, follow indulgence. I'm totally aware of the privilege, right, aspect of this, right? That I have the privilege to have the opportunity to do that. So it's a very privileged position. And I do have the privilege. And so to not be restrictive, essentially, in that month. So that's how I would kind of share about it, coming off of how it ties into
Was
Lexi's.
the indulgence easy?
Yes.
Yes. That's great.
Yes, it was. And I think, again, it was an expression of the work I've done, right?
Yeah.
Because I think I didn't have to battle guilt. Again, it felt like a expression of it is okay to care and love for myself in this. And that really is like loving to other people. Mm-hmm. That is loving to my family. That is loving to my employee, like people at Opal. It is loving to Julie and Lexi. That's where I did the artist way. We've talked about that before, but that was one of my practices in the sabbatical. And that was really incredible to have that little bit of structure and to have some guidance around my interior work. But yeah, I think just being off of leading and being, was a huge.
Yeah. The way you keep using the word leading and not having to be a leader, and you keep using that word. And I assume that was a big part of that, or of this experience for all three of you. But the way that you've been putting it, Kara, has made me kind of think about just the role that anyone plays in their life, particularly around work. Like, we take on that one part of self for 5 days of the week. And that's the part that runs the show. And for the three of you, that's been leader or therapist or nutritionist, dietitian. I was going to say nutrition director, executive director, like all these roles, right? That are the main ones that you play. And then that can be a really large part of identity to have that part of you like driving the car of your life and being the main one that needs to be functioning well. Whereas all these other parts that actually have other instincts and other needs don't get any space. And so to take the like leader out of kind of the repertoire of different parts of self that you get to sort of like honor in a day is a pretty cool thing.
Totally.
See what else happens.
Yeah.
And it's cool to hear you say that it was really easy for you to do that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm an introvert, like not that does everything, but the constant leading, I had gotten weary around that.
Yeah, it's really different.
Yeah. And Opal, is just intense. It's like you're on, it's very relationally heavy, and the sense of the amount of relational interaction is high. So yeah.
Well, Julie, I want to hear about your time as well. What your hopes were going in and what it wound up looking like.
Yeah, I would say that my hope was that I would I remember one of my first days I said something to somebody that was a quote from a local Seattle pastor actually that said, what is it like to get your coffee with room? To order your coffee with room. And that's what I wanted my sabbatical to feel like, is to like, I don't even get coffee, but I wanted my days to feel like that. Like, oh, there's just room, which means that I can like pause and literally smell the flowers, which is something that I love doing and did notice doing, but also just pause to like notice the things around me and decide to make that turn to go there instead of maybe the path I was having to or directing myself towards. So I really did enjoy that. I think my reflection often was that I didn't see dramatic changes in my temperament or in who I am or like even my day-to-day behavior. In some ways, I take that as like a good thing. Like, wow, like I'm like I like the way that I live my life. It's not like crazily different and doesn't, when I'm having space, that I like am a dramatically different person or I need something dramatically different in my life in comparison to what my life is. And that felt encouraging and comforting to me. It also helped me see the things that I don't love about maybe some of my behavior or some of my situational, stuff in my life that I couldn't quote unquote blame on my career or blame on my high responsibility, right? Like the thing that because of what I have to hold in my life, it's an easy scapegoat. It's an easy scapegoat that like, well, of course you would say that or behave that way with your kids or with your husband or because you did X, Y, and Z today and had all this stuff that you did. Well, guess what? Like when I did zero that was like meaningful or contributing to the world, I still behave and act that way with my husband and my kids. So I think that honestly, it felt good. It was like honest. And that was like, okay, the root of this issue is me.
That's my work. Yeah. Oh my gosh, totally.
So that was good.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I've had that experience even like going from being y'all's employee to working for myself and noticing like, okay, what was sort of the tension of like sort of a structure that wasn't working for me anymore. And okay, now I'm doing this thing that fits and I've created this schedule for myself. And then what's like my fault? Like, not to say it that, I mean, that sounds harsh, but like what's actually my personality? And like, okay, that's just something I need to buckle down and work on. It's like, that's just not going well, no matter where I am and what I'm doing for work. Like, that's me.
I hear in it again, like the clarity from Lexi, clarity, right? Like, okay,
it is.
Yeah, it gives you more of a sense of where something's being sourced.
Yeah.
But there's no sort of like thing to blame it on or explain it away with. Yeah.
I think the rest for me came that the amount of input was significantly less. And that's where my rest came was, and therefore I could be following what I wanted to do or just feel more grounded in me and like what I believe about something or what I think about something. So I think that's something as I come back to is just like how I can allow the input to like not feel reactionary to the input and allow myself to give myself the space that I might need if I'm feeling like there's too much to say, I need some time to think about that versus my instinct is to jump up, do it, respond with my like gut or what somebody's asking me to do.
Yeah.
That was a very clear contrast is the amount of input was. And I mean, obviously, you get in a sabbatical, at least I chose what kind of input I wanted, right? So it's like, oh, I could read, and that would be my input versus choosing to be in a highly social environment and that kind of input. You know, I was just like so much more control over the source of input.
I'm curious about, you know, the thought was posed earlier that this was something that you guys were going to do, and you're aware that hopefully in taking care of yourselves and getting to have this space for your own inner worlds during these times, that it would seep in to your work life, both on behalf of sort of the culture of Opal for the clients, but then also I would imagine for employees too. How has the time shifted? Any perspective on those categories?
One of the things that happened right when I got back from sabbatical, like the reason there was a gap between our two sabbaticals, me and Lexi and Julie's, is that in the middle of that, we had a construction project and expanded.
Really big one.
Kitchen renovation.
So one of the most stressful
was the biggest
times.
project we've had
at Opal.
And if someone doesn't understand the implications of that, like it's an eating disorder clinic where people are learning to eat again, and everything revolves around the kitchen.
Right.
Fed 3 meals, 2 snacks a day.
Everything.
And our kitchen was shut down to get remodeled. And we had to have a makeshift kitchen in the dining room with no running water, no ovens. So I came back from my sabbatical with demolition happening, which was a surprise. We thought our understanding is that the remodel was going to be starting in November, and I got back, after my August one, and the demo had occurred. Thankfully, Julie gave me the heads up before I came back in that was happening, so I wouldn't be totally shocked. Jeez. So needless to say, it was a pretty, major contrast in my experience coming off of that month to be in demo, and they had already met with like the architect about some decisions for fixtures. So it was like already like it was in motion. And I remember those early few weeks being very like kind of protective of these things, these like practices I wanted to keep in my life, even though we were about to hitting like one of the most stressful times at Opal. And I was writing every morning. I would say I was rigid around some of those practices because I kind of knew that it was be really easy for those things to go away given what position we were in. And I did see like so much benefit of what those things were bringing into my life and then what they could bring into Opal's life. So it's been interesting to see that continual thing in the last however many months this has been, 4 months. But I would say like, yeah, I think I've kind of needed to have constant invitations to myself to keep those practices that are for myself, because unlike Julie, I think there is more of a mismatch between some of the ways I would care for myself and the position I'm in in the day-to-day at work. So I think I just have to keep on that around time by myself. So I've done okay. I'd give myself a C+, maybe a B-.
Has your awareness of that like shifted at all in terms of how you're like supervising people or how you're like seeing, I don't know, I remember at Opal, some clients are like, this is a really full schedule. Like I can't do this, you
totally.
know, like does it offer any sort of like window or empathy into?
Oh, I've always had empathy
temperamentally?
about it. So it's never, I've always like been aware, and I've had empathy for my supervisees and for staff. Like I've always been attuned, like that attunement's been there.
Yeah.
And so I think my own process though of being responsive to it has shifted for myself, which then I don't know how much that's shifted in my caring for other people, because again, attunement and empathy have been there.
Totally.
So, and there's obviously just things like there are parts of this that we aren't going to be able to meet all of our own needs because of the demand of work. So, but I get into those conversations with my supervisees and try to problem solve. And I certainly don't hold judgment.
Yeah.
But then how do we make that work within the system, and expectations still are there for what people need to be doing. And so, it's still those conversations, but I think it's been really good for our staff to see us care for ourselves.
Absolutely.
I think we've got a lot of feedback around that.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh,
And it seems like, Julie, we're in the early days here, but when I came back from sabbatical, I had 3 or 4 main big job responsibilities that I was saying that I needed to offload in order to have a different work experience. And so those decisions I am feeling, and it's, I feel like I've been saying, like, I feel like it's a little bit of a retirement feeling, even though I'm working full time.
Yeah, just a little bit back to balance.
Yeah, it just is different. It just feels different, and it didn't feel different during the remodel. It was really stressful. But like this week, for example, I have all this space, and I'm not doing. I mean, I had to let go of a lot of things that I love. It's been a kind of a sad grief kind of process. But I know that it's important to slow down. And so that means letting go of, I think that's something that we battle is just when you slow down, you have to let go of like prized moments that you've had over the years. And, I've let go of a lot of clinical work and leadership responsibilities and kind of found myself, honestly, in a place of more stillness at work and not knowing what is my role? Who am I here? How can I be impactful? What's my usefulness? Sometimes I'm in meetings. I'm like, what am I doing here? Why am I in this room right now? And it all started because of that time off.
That's impacted me to watch you do that, to watch you be willing to grieve something and say let go of something in order to have more stillness at work has been impactful. And I still have growth to do in that. I know. I think we all love what we do, and if you look at what we do, but then if it's not working too, then it's just hard. It's really hard to make those decisions of saying goodbye to things.
Yeah, I found a lot, encouragement yesterday just to at least have that similar feeling of like, okay, wait, if I'm not doing that, and having you state that similar experience of like, why were we in that meeting? No, you're right. We shouldn't have been. Anyways, so it's
It feels a little like we're put out to pasture in the back hallway because we moved at the same time too.
We moved to the other side.
So now we're away from all of the clinical. I feel like I've said it's like an assisted living wing or something.
oh my gosh.
What?
That's it just
Are there
feels
other employees
like
back there with
yes,
you
there
that
are
also
that
in
don't feel
assisted
like they're
living?
in assisted living.
It's
Probably
so quiet and
It's just
nothing's
quieter,
it's really quiet. Not much happens,
It's like the
the
Florida
stimulation
subtle.
is stimulation is lower.
Yeah, much. It just feels like life slowed down, like what I would imagine retirement looking like more. But I think for
That
most,
is so not my experience.
There's it's still like 10 hours of treatment that happen in that group room. It's right next to my office.
Yeah.
I know,
Yeah,
and I'm working
yeah,
hard, but it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
not this like
Funny.
that like intensive stimuli.
It
I was
is
just
not.
right in the
The
middle
kitchen.
of
And
Grand
Lexi's
Central
office
Station.
used to be the one right next to the kitchen,
Yeah.
everybody. So she had the...
So
Yeah,
all
you
of a
had the thick of it.
sudden, it's just complete
Yeah.
stillness in my office, and sometimes it's kind of lonely over there, and
Yeah.
it's just very, very different than it was pre-sabbatical. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah,
kind of
and-
this question of how do we stay relevant? You know, what's
Yeah. Well, and it's, as business leader, as like we started this company, so we had particular roles and then it's grown and changed. And so there's like structural, organizational things that we've never approached before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, we're trying to, what do people do?
What do they do?
If you're not the like acting, working partner, kind of like that's the, like where are the roles and what's the impact still going to be?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of grief in leaving that.
I think that's part of what we're talking about, right? Is
Totally.
the perspective taking.
Totally.
You know, like that time off gave us this look at life outside of this, you know, intense stimuli input zone, you know, and what is life really about? Kind of
Totally.
connecting more with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for those listeners that aren't going to take a sabbatical, I know that most of us won't. I think that is maybe just an encouraging thought in general. Like what in life could offer some sort of perspective shift for you, even if it's something that is an hour. Like I know when I've been stressed out, an hour sounds like forever, and getting my cortisol level down to even enjoy that hour is really, really hard. But I think that just knowing that you can learn so much with that kind of built-in space, if it's something that you can lean into, is so important. Whether that's like, I know people say that like 15 minutes of meditation or 5 minutes of meditation or one even a day can make such a difference in life. But also, this is an idea from the Artist Way again, but there's an idea in there of like going on artist dates that are just supposed to be something that is about indulging your curiosity and your inspiration and your whimsy, right? And it doesn't have to be something for an artist where you just go, what is the thing that like brings me to life a little bit? Can I just go to the art store and buy like a pack of markers? Or do I want to go to this really cool grocery store and buy like one ingredient that I normally would never buy? Or what, just moments like that sound like little small things that could be like a perspective shift or like building in a little bit more space or
And I would
something
say
like
like
that.
something that's realistic too is just like, what if the 20 minutes you're just kind of on your phone or like the 10 minutes, like that feels like a place that a lot of people, a lot of us are in, of just using our phones as the in-between time.
Totally.
The kind of distraction of the in-between. And so what if one time the phone wasn't the distraction time and it was a look inside of like, what's interesting to me right now? Like, right. What am I even thinking about? What do I feel?
I think technology is a place where we can change those habits too. Because I know that I think all of us did that, removed our email from our phone during the sabbatical, and I haven't put mine back on.
Nice.
And I'm like noticing it was one thing to be doing that when I wasn't having to have that input, but now I'm like, oh, even just for the 2 nights of like, wait, but is this okay that I didn't get that email? Is that all right? Like, I'm just trying to take that in. But that's something that I think is a practical, like, do you, within as a listener, it's like, what do you have to have access to things from work, outside of work hours? I don't know what's expected of you in your work culture, but like, I think it's been an interesting 2 days.
Yes.
For me.
Yeah. I remember in our self-inquiry episode, I was talking a little bit about technology as well. And I think what I said, I don't remember, maybe I have new thoughts about this now, was that one of the questions that I'm trying to ask is like, what am I avoiding in my life when I am doing this? When I'm just tuning out? Because I could do that for large portions of the day if I had the hours to do that. Like I could just tune out. And what is it about my life that I'm maybe wanting to numb out, or things that I don't want to look at, or places that I don't want to sort of become more active or enlivened even. That reminds me of your question, Lexi, around like the stillness. And I would imagine that for everybody in life, there's some pocket of stillness or silence that they would rather not go near, whether that is conscious or unconscious. And it can be hard to do that. But if you're aware of that pocket being there, and whether it's 10 minutes where you do something different with your phone or set it aside and stare out the window even, there can be a lot of benefit in asking some new questions of yourself or letting your brain wander instead of focusing on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Non-productivity is productive.
Yes, it is. Yes, very important. We'd love to know how you received this conversation today. Any places of inspiration or questions that you have, you can always reach out to us on Instagram or Facebook at Opal Food and Body. And if you want to learn more about our programming and events, make sure you go to opalfoodandbody.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope that you subscribe so you're up to date on our newest releases. Thank you to Daniel Gunther at Jack Straw Cultural Center for sound engineering, to Aaron Davidson for the Appetite's original music, and to Hans Anderson for editing. Join us next time.